Hello and welcome to my podcast. I'm so pleased to have you back here, and I am delighted that you'll be joining me for this episode, all about how dating has changed. Now, the pandemic has brought us so many different changes. People just can't go onto dating apps anymore for quick hookups, and they're looking for something more. Online dating sites have noticed a 30% increase in people joining them. And even my dating coaching, I've seen so many more people coming to me looking for a serious relationship. Now, on today's show, I'm going to be bringing you a very, very special guest. I'm so delighted to have her here with me today. She's one of my team. Her name is Jade Birkin, and she is an expert on being a single blogger. Now, she started writing her university dissertation about how single women are portrayed in literature and TV. And ever since then, Jade has been observing singles and reflecting on her own dating life. And with so many stories while navigating the world of dating, she started her own blog, Jaded Dating. Jade is in her early 30s. She's single and lives in Glasgow City. Now, Jade, welcome to the show.
Hi, James. Thank you so much for having me.
It is an absolute pleasure. I'm delighted to have you here. I know that my listeners are going to really, really enjoy everything you have to say. So, let's get right into this. Now, dating. How do you think dating has changed recently?
I think dating has changed because of the apps and because people constantly being on the go. Everything was just so quick. It was like quick date, quick date, hook up, next date. It was just constantly go, go, go. And people just weren't taking the time to really get to know somebody. And that's actually positive right now during this time, as people are genuinely sitting down, having conversations on the phone, having Zoom calls, and really getting to know another person without that physical need that's there as well.
I think you're absolutely right. People have had a chance now just to sit back and to rest and to reflect and to reboot themselves on all aspects of their lives. And dating, of course, everyone sat at home thinking, you know what, I really wish I had somebody with me at the moment. And it's quite a lonely time. But I think what's happened now is that everyone's being brought together. We're all being forced through the same experiences. And when we have shared experiences, we tend to bond a lot faster. So I think this has really, really helped. And I think we'll see a lot of this as time goes on over the coming months and the coming years, and hopefully for the better. Now, Jade, I know you've been doing a lot of virtual dating recently, and you've got some mixed experiences in doing this. Can you tell me
Yeah.
about what you've been up to?
Well, at the start of lockdown, it was the first weekend of official lockdown, but I had actually already been in isolation for 3 weeks because I was unfortunately unwell. And I had a first date over Skype with someone that had, matched with on a dating app years ago, but we had never actually dated, but we have followed each other on Instagram, so it was really strange in a way. So I think I was quite innocent at the time because nobody else was doing it. And I was like, let's have a date over Skype. So we did. And we properly set up for it. We both went and got our favourite wine. We both got dressed up. He shaved. I put my favourite perfume on. And I had a little candle beside the screen. And I properly got that date environment as much as I could
That's
for
so
it.
important that people do that because ambience is one of my top tips I'll be giving everybody very shortly. So, were you nervous before you did this?
Um, Sort of. For me, I do date a lot, and I don't really get nervous for dates anyway. But I was extremely excited because I'd actually been wanting to date this particular guy for about 6, 7 years anyway.
Ah,
Um, so I was really, really excited. And I think because I had been in lockdown for 3 weeks at this point, I was just so happy to have a conversation that wasn't about how unwell I had been or what was happening with work.
mm.
And I did really, really enjoy that. And we just got right into it and it was great. I couldn't believe how comfortable I felt. I think, with being in your own home for a first date, there is something a little bit comfortable. However, my warning for people is to not get too comfortable because I think with a one-to-one date and you're drinking alcohol probably quicker than you would be if you were sitting in a bar because you're just reporting it yourself. And there's certainly a, a relaxed feel about it, a more comfortable feel about it. and you probably do let yourself go more than you usually would on a first date.
That's very, very interesting thing to hear. How long do you speak for?
I think it was actually the clocks had went forward as well, so we got a little bit confused, but I think it was just over 5 hours.
5 hours.
Yeah,
You did 5 hours virtual dating.
yeah,
That's
we
throwing
both.
yourself into it properly. That is.
I know we both had more than a bottle of wine as well, so
Right.
yeah, we probably should have ended before we did. But the conversation was just flowing so easily somehow.
I'm sure it would have been 5 hours on a bottle of wine. How many bottles of wine did you get through?
I just had one bottle of wine and then one or two gins. I can't quite remember. I think it's about 1.5 bottles of wine.
I bet by the end of the conversation was a little bit slurry.
No, it was definitely very flirty, which is something
Is
I
it?
didn't expect with a date
Yeah.
over Skype. I didn't expect it to be as flirty as it was. I could really feel like the chemistry, if that makes sense.
Wow. I
Um,
wouldn't recommend a date more than an hour and a half, or half an hour for a virtual date. But I suppose it was your first proper one, and you were just seeing what happened. And obviously, it went well. How did you
yeah.
end it?
We ended it by I had his number and he didn't have mine by this point, so I had just said I would message him my number, and then that was sort of it. It was just okay. Guess we better go now. 'Cause
And
it
what
seemed
happened then? What happens after that?
And then we sent a message to say goodnight. And then over the week, we just sent each other a couple of voice notes over our WhatsApp.
Okay. And will you be seeing him in the real world?
That's how it had ended. We had decided we would. And the last conversation we had was that we were going to catch up again over Skype that weekend. And then he unfortunately just never got back to me.
No.
Yeah, can you believe I was ghosted by someone in their 30s in a pandemic?
You
But never mind.
Oh dear, this is why I don't recommend that you spend more than an hour and a half on a real life date, because if it doesn't go somewhere, then you're not wasting your time. And I think you can
Yeah,
always leave something for your imagination next time and something to look forward to. I imagine having a 5 hour conversation, as fun as it might be, you probably burnt yourselves out and you probably thought he has nothing else to say.
yeah, probably, especially right now because you aren't going about your normal life the same way.
You,
Um,
you're not, it's difficult. Some people just like a good natter. And maybe you did. Maybe the gin and the wines helped with that. But it's disappointing. But I bet you've
yeah.
had loads more interest and loads more people asking you to do this.
Oh, thank you. There's been a couple of different things, just in sense of for me to have a sense of moving forward. I have kept dating as much as I can during this time. Keeps
Yes.
normality as well for someone who does date.
Mm.
So a couple of weeks ago, I did some online speed dating.
Okay. How did that go?
It was interesting.
Oh, don't say interesting. Every
No,
time
I
I've
was.
ever, every time I've ever asked anybody after a speed dating event that I've run how it was, they always go, it was interesting. That's it. Which I know what that means. That's code for it was fun, but there was no one nice. So tell me your experience.
No, my experience was great. For me, I actually, as you know, I host speed dating events myself.
Mm.
So I've not actually been speed dating myself in a couple of years um, for that. So I was really excited and I was actually a little bit nervous this time for doing speed dating, especially maybe being recognised as a singles host. I didn't know if maybe people that I saw as clients would be there, and it would feel more like catch ups for me rather than dates.
Mm.
But again, I did the same as what I had done for my one-to-one day. I put a perfume on, I poured a nice glass of wine and a little candle beside me to really get into it. The system that the company had done was very clever as well. So you had a 5-minute video call with each person, and there would be 8 dates that I would have that evening. And it was very interesting. The first impressions you get of people, maybe because of what they're wearing. For instance, on it's very different, and it flew by. The 8 5-minute dates, as you can imagine, absolutely flew by.
Yeah.
And there was actually a little timer when you had like just 10 seconds left. We're like, oh no, just as the conversation's getting into it and having to quickly end it. And it's
What happens then after each session? Does it just bang on to the next person immediately?
no, well, after each session, the person would go away, and then just on the screen it says the host is connecting your next day, and it would maybe
Yeah.
take about 20-30 seconds before.
Okay. So someone's
Yeah.
sitting there managing the whole process and they're booking
Yeah.
people in. So you get to speak to everybody and the host is there. Did you get to meet the host at all?
I didn't get to meet the host and over video, but he was there throughout chat the whole time.
Yes.
So that was there for support.
Mm.
And if anything was inappropriate or anything, you could let them know immediately. So I certainly felt very safe and very comfortable. And what I love about speed dating and singles nights anyway is the same thing that I got from this. It was just realizing that there was other people in the exact same situation as you. You know, they were sitting, they were living alone, they were single, they were trying to keep a sense of normality in dating as well, and they were putting themselves out there virtually and taking that time out of their evening to do so.
Fantastic. I think it's really, really good that companies are offering these virtual events
Yeah,
because this will carry forwards as time goes on because it's so much easier just to log onto your computer and you can meet 8 to 10 people very, very quickly without having to go out, go on public transport, maybe even get dressed completely. But whatever it might be, these options are out there. And I've noticed lots of companies are trying some strange things and they're trying novel things. Like maybe they're doing a live cookery night where you all cook the same thing. Or karaoke or quiz nights. And these have always happened in bars and in real world. But now you can just do it remotely. I think this adds a new dimension to it and makes things so much more fun.
absolutely.
Did you get any matches from the speed dating event?
So I decided, the day after you log in and you see all your matches and you tick who you liked, and out of the 8 gentlemen, I picked one. And then after the 48 hours, 7 of the men had logged in, and out of those 7, 6 had picked me. So
Ooh.
the one person I ticked, either he was the one who didn't log in or he didn't tick me. But I still
No.
had 6 ticks, which is obviously a really lovely thing to know that there were 6 out of the 8 would like to talk to me more. So that was really lovely.
That's pretty impressive. I think the men tend to tick more boxes than women do. And I think our next conversation that we have for a future podcast should be about singles events and speed dating if you're up for
Absolutely.
it. Because you've got so much value to add to that. But that's still really impressive to get 6 matches, pretty much out of 7 by the sounds of it.
Yes.
So who was the other guy? Was he blind?
Oh, thank you. I'm not sure. However, we work in the same area of the city, and we actually talked about the same sandwich shop that we go to in lunch break. So I'll probably awkwardly run into him when all this is over.
That would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? You can confront us. Excuse
Why
me.
didn't you text me? Why didn't you text me?
What's going on? What's going on? And he might just say, well, I didn't tick you because I didn't want to tick anybody because I didn't want to get rejected. And I hear that a lot with singles events. Guys don't tick people they really like because they're scared they won't get a match. It'll dent their confidence. And that's not really in the spirit of things. So I wouldn't take that too personally. Obviously, it doesn't matter because you've got plenty more people that are interested. And that's amazing. So you won't be going on any dates from the event this time round. But would you consider booking some more virtual events?
Yeah, absolutely. I would do them again. I've downloaded a dating app that I'm trying to go on every so often,
Yeah.
and just have conversations, if anything, especially if you are single and living alone, just to connect and realize that there's other people in that situation can just make you feel so much better, even if they're not somebody that you're going to marry in the future. Just to have those conversations with someone is really beneficial while you're single and living alone.
I agree. I think many people do suffer in general life from loneliness and not meeting enough people. Maybe they work remotely or don't go out and have as active a social life as possible. And I think dating apps in general and online dating sites have really helped with that. And I think video dating and virtual dating has really, really made this so much more special and it can really, really help. But I think when it comes to virtual dating, there are things you have to remember if you want to get it right. Because people come to me, and I've done many a Zoom call with clients, and they have just had really, really awkward camera angles, and they put the camera at the wrong place. Or maybe they have a strange background. And I think you have to remember how to make this work. So what I've done, I put together some top tips for everybody, just to give you some ideas and some pointers to make this work. And Jade, do feel free to chip in with any suggestions that you might have to help me improve.
Okay, I will do.
Great. So the first thing to remember is camera angles, like I just said. Think about where the camera should be. I think the camera needs to be slightly above your head, looking down. You don't want the camera pointing from below, looking up. I had a lady the other day coaching, and all I could see were her boobs all the way through the session, because that's all she presented. And she actually admitted that was on purpose, because that was what she likes guys to notice. No, that would give you the wrong idea.
Oh,
And no one to see up someone's nose either.
no.
No, no one wants to see that. And you're laughing now. And all right. So remember, have the camera above, looking down. That way, you won't have six chins. You won't look up someone's nose, and it will look at the most flattering angle just from above, looking down. You may want to put your laptop up above on a stack of books or something like that if you have to. And don't do what some people have been doing on virtual dating. Don't do it on your phone, holding the phone out a foot ahead of you at the same time, because then it will be shaky and it'll be wobbling around. And people do this. It sounds common sense, but they're wobbling around and they're not going to be able to gesture and they won't be able to focus on what they're doing. So don't use a mobile phone for this unless you've got it on a tripod or a stand. And my next tip, of course, now you've done this already, Jade, you said, is dressing up and making sure that you do feel the whole thing is absolutely appropriate. So you're going to look as you would look on a real date. So what did you wear when you had your virtual date?
Um, for both of them, I wore a black body. For the one-to-one, it was slightly off the shoulder, so there was a little bit of shoulder, but no cleavage. I mean, I don't have a cleavage anyway. But yeah, that sort of idea. And just before we went into lockdown, I had got a beautiful pair of heels, which I've not been able to wear out yet. So I did. I wore my black top with my skinny jeans and my heels, and I did my hair and a little bit of makeup, not like a huge amount either, because obviously the camera does pick things up, and I wanted to look as natural as possible anyway, with having the makeup on. So yeah, and a little bit of jewellery and just what I would normally wear.
I think that's really good. Guys, you've got to remember, you've got to have a shave before you do your virtual dating. And because women will wear makeup and guys can't do a lot to hide their appearance, but having a shave, and you had a good tip earlier, you said you put on some perfume as well.
Yeah, I
That,
missed my perfume. It'd been so long since I'd worn my favourite perfume as well, and it does just up your mood. And I would say that for guys as well, to put on that scent, and it just makes you feel really good.
yeah, absolutely. It's all about how you're going to feel. If you feel more confident putting your perfume on or putting your heels on, and ladies too, put your heels on, not just the guys, whatever it might be, remember that you're there to impress them as well, and also to feel as sexy and confident as you possibly can. And that's great. Do dress up in the way you would on a real date. There's nothing worse than tuning into a virtual date and finding out someone's sitting there in a t-shirt or looking really slovenly. They've made an effort and you haven't, you're going to feel awkward as well. So dress up as best you can.
That was
That'd
what
be-
was really interesting about the speed dating online, is there was actually one gentleman who really looked, that kind of cliche gamer look. And that might be how he goes out anyway, but for me, it just looked like he'd been at that computer desk all day
Oh
and hadn't even
no.
went and had a shower or dinner before his virtual date. And so that's just an immediate no within the first 15 seconds of logging on.
That's very true because, of course, first impressions are going to count more so than ever. You don't want someone to switch on and then click off 2 seconds later because they're so turned off by what you're wearing. Everyone has to give themselves the best opportunity possible. And I think background's also quite important when it comes into this. Remember what's in the background of your picture. Some of my clients have really cool pictures of, well, not pictures, there's something up my little top tip coming up there. Some of my clients have a bookcase behind them full of really interesting books or some interesting painting because they're all talking points. But if you haven't got that, I do recommend Zoom backgrounds are quite fun. And you can just download a virtual picture in the background. Maybe it's just of a bar, of a coffee shop, or something really cool, or give yourself the impression that you look and you live in somewhere different to where you really do. Just make it interesting and fun. And don't have something boring in the background because you're going to talk for 5 hours. You want to make sure you've got something else to look at during that time. Not that I recommend that. Wonderful. On to the next thing. It's about number three. It's about ambience. And you mentioned also that you had your bottle of wine, which is really important. I think it's good to give them a sense of what you are about, and as if you're on a real date. So you wouldn't necessarily be drinking different drinks. You might have the same bottle of wine. Did you tell the guy what wine you're going to be drinking?
Well, I had said I had picked up my favourite wine. and we both had a red wine, which was a great connection. And we got to speak about which wine we were each drinking, and it was our favourites. So that did work out quite well.
Wonderful, that's good. I think sometimes background music can help as well, some light background music. You had the candle, and candles are really good because they're romantic and they set the scene. You've got to set the scene for this. This is not a business meeting, this is not friends catching up. Because catching up is a whole other thing I'll get into in another podcast, the phrase catching up. You actually used it yourself earlier on. You said that after your date, you thought you might catch up again. And catching up is not what people do when they're dating. But that's a whole other story
Well, yeah.
for another time. But just remember, you're there to have a date, not to just have a friendly catch up or chat. And the next thing I want to tell you about is tip number 4, is about eye contact. Now, this can be confusing for some people because it depends on the position of your camera. If you're looking at the camera rather than looking at them on the screen, I'm doing it now, but you can't see this, of course, because you're listening to this on a podcast. I'm looking now in your eyes, direct, and I'm looking up here at the camera. Can you tell the difference?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. And on a real date, eye contact is so important for making a really deep connection. So just remember to flick yourself back and forth between the camera and the screen to give it a bit of balance. If you just stare at the screen the whole time, that can be quite intense. But you want to give the impression to help build the eye contact. How did you find that when you did your virtual dates in terms of eye contact? Was that easy? Was it normal?
Yeah, I felt like it was quite normal. However, I understand that it wouldn't feel that way for some people. And so I do have a little tip actually about making eye contact in the camera. So for instance, if you're on your laptop and you've got your little camera at the top, and like we're saying, a lot of the time you do look at the screen to look at the other person, but you want to look at the camera to make the eye contact. And a little tip I got from a video webinar that I did was if you get like a little post-it or something and you draw a smiley face and put it up beside the camera, and that'll just remind you to look into the camera as well as looking at the person on the screen to give that variation.
That's a fantastic tip. It reminds you to smile as well at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
That's really, really useful. Thank you for that. And now tip number 5 I want to give you. Now, you didn't do this, but I think 5-hour dates, I think you need to keep it relatively short, at least the first time. Because it is so intense to talk to somebody for a long period of time over camera. Yeah. And if you say to them in advance that you want to have a quick chat with them, then there's no pressure. I know you've done the makeup and you've got yourself ready for that, but if you always talk for more, but the longer you talk, then the less things you have to talk about next time. This is not here to have a pen pal or a chat friend you're just going to talk to. You want to make a connection. You want to leave a bit of mystery and ask them questions. Now, sometimes this is going to happen. The conversation is going to flow. It's going to go on and on and on, but then cut it short and then talk to them again another time. And we'll come on to that very shortly as well. I've got to ask you about that, about how you keep things going if you want to keep them going afterwards. Now, the last tip, of course, is before you even do this, do a test run. Please do this. There's nothing worse than arranging a virtual date and you've never done it before. You've got no idea if your microphone's working or if you've got the right lighting. And the lighting is quite important as well. You might know this already, but of course lighting, if you have a light from in front of you coming through like a window, you'll look more flattering and you'll look better. If you haven't got that, you can buy lights off the internet called ring lights for about £20. They're really, really useful. I'm going to buy one soon when I start doing my YouTube channel, but not just yet. So most Zoom calls, we actually discussed this off camera before we even started doing this, that most Zoom calls do start with, can you hear me? Are you okay? Are you there? Can you see me? So it's a good idea to test it with a friend before you even do a call. Because a date is not a practice. You want to get on with it first and get to know them and go right into the meat of the conversation. Maybe call a friend up who's sitting there to say, can you hear me? Is the lighting okay? Any tips you can give me? Do you agree with that, Jade?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, I did have some technical difficulties with that first date that I had because it was the start of lockdown and I hadn't done anything yet. And by the end of the evening, the lighting was really quite, he actually commented on the lighting and he thought it was really deliberate, but it's because I'm in like a Glasgow tenement and the ceilings are so high and my main light isn't that bright because I never really need my living room to be that bright. And it really was quite like we were in a little dark pub, like from mine.
Maybe that would help after 5 hours.
Yeah, I know. But we did have technical problems. I didn't have Zoom Pro at the time, and the camera wasn't working at first, so it was just voice for like the first 30 minutes. And I sort of made a joke that maybe it wasn't meant to be, and yeah. So I'll add that extra kind of half hour on to the how long the date was with the technical problems.
Oh, 5.5 hours, blimey, that's intense. I
No,
couldn't.
I mean including the 5 hours, so 4.5.
Oh, so just 4.5. So half an hour technical rehearsal and then four and a
Yeah,
half hours recording. That sounds fun. So yeah, do a test run before, and that won't happen.
yeah,
But of course, things are going to go wrong. Zoom is sometimes a bit unreliable. Internet connections are unreliable, and do you know what? The whole point of this is just to have fun, and it's giving you a chance. This is not a date replacement. It's a chance to get to know them before you go on a real date. So I think you could have had the 5 hour date in real life after this, even though I'd still say an hour and a half is plenty for a first meetup. But so I think one of the problems people have now is they do a great virtual date and it goes really, really well. And they're really happy to speak to them. And then time drags on. And another week's gone by and you've been texting a little bit. But then you have to think, how do I keep the momentum going in just the right way so that when we do meet, we haven't burnt out the conversation? Or perhaps what we're going to talk about then when we do meet. How often do you think, supposing this guy you had gotten really, really well with him, how often would you have spoken to him?
um, virtually, maybe once or twice a week.
Mm.
Not every day virtually. And I'm not somebody who kind of usually in life with being so busy, I'm not somebody who's texting all day anyway. And that is a piece of advice I give to people who are dating no matter what. You don't need to have a good morning message and talk all day right up until good night, because you do want to save the conversation until you are together and catch up on what you've been up to, rather than just constantly saying, right now I'm at the supermarket, now I'm at the gym. Just wait and say, well, I did a shop and I went to the gym this week.
I think you're absolutely right. Even in real life, the secret is to give them a chance to miss you and to wonder about you, what you're up to, when they're going to see you again, and get excited by that. If you have endless conversations, then it's going to burn out. And these conversations can start off really, really intense. And as time goes by, they're going to get less and less and less. And you're going to get more sick about hearing from them. And if you feel the need to text them back immediately every time you get a good morning, what I think you should do is keep momentum going by all means. You have to do that
Yeah.
because otherwise they might talk to somebody else. And I think you should talk to somebody else. Multi-dating is just as important as it is in the real world. Do talk to other people. Do have other conversations to take your mind off it. Don't just fixate and focus on the one person.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you talk to them too much and the lockdown goes on or you can't meet them for whatever reason, then when you do meet them in the real world, they're not quite going to be the same person that you had in your head. They become a fantasy version. So to keep things slow, quantity is less important than quality.
Yes.
That's what I think. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Whether it's in lockdown or after all of this, when you can see them in person, just really make it meaningful conversation, and you don't need to message all day every day.
You don't. And even though we've got access to video cameras, we haven't got to use them all the time. So keep it as a special moment. I think once a week is plenty, for maybe half an hour to an hour. Keep things going. Know you like them. Talk about how your week was going. So I think finally, the last thing I'd like to talk to you about is the future of dating and what you think might happen next. Any thoughts on that at all?
Yes, I'm quite excited for the future of dating. I mean, up until all of this, I've been, I host singles events and I'm trying to get people to meet away from the dating apps and away from the superficial reasons to make a match on dating apps, and more about being there in person and having somebody in front of you, which obviously has got a little bit of a hold right now. So I am obviously pro dating apps right now to keep momentum going. Momentum is a word I love to use, and I noticed you use it quite a lot during the pod. And I think with having singles nights, I'm very interested in personality types, and I really look at introverts and extroverts. And I think something like my singles nights is a no-go for so many introverts. And what I'm thinking right now is, if singles, whether they're extrovert or introvert, they will be loving this online dating, whether it be singles nights or chatting on the dating apps more, because it's going to either, if they're extroverted, get their energy out, and if they're introverted, get their confidence up a little bit as well. So I do think that both personality types will start coming to singles events. after this, because they'll feel more confident in themselves, as well as the fact I imagine most people will be desperate to just be standing in front of another human being and sharing the experience of being single in lockdown after all of this.
Fantastic. I absolutely agree with you. I think this has opened up so many more possibilities to people that they didn't think were even possible. And they're doing things they never thought they'd ever do. People are speaking on camera who've never spoken on camera before, who've been too scared to do it. So if you've been doing that, fantastic. Well done you. I'm so proud of you all for doing that. And Jade, thank you so much for talking to me. I really enjoyed this. And I think next time we do this, I'd love to talk to you more about singles parties and singles events, because obviously between us, we run hundreds of these things, and there's a lot of advice to talk about. So thank you very much. If anyone wants to read your blog, what is the website for that, please?
So it is jadeddating.wordpress.com.
Wonderful. Do pay her a visit. The blogs are very amusing and very entertaining. I've read quite a few myself. And Jade hopefully is going to write some blogs for my website soon. And we're coming to some of my events in the future. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much, Jade.
Thank you so much.
Great. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.